be in this meeting is our prayer in Jesus' name.
Thank you, Member Miller. Are there any apologies for absence? Apologies. Let me use this. Yes.
Member Delroy Williams.
Delroy Williams, apology for Delroy Williams. Any other apologies? Members, let me welcome you all to the sitting of this Joint Select Committee. This sitting is more than overdue, I must say. And I'm sure it is not because of a lack of willingness on the part of the members and the staff here at Parliament to have this meeting. You know, when we were trying to schedule the meeting, there was no space at all, I must say, for us. You know, the entire month of May and June was packed with not only other committee meetings, but sitting of the House of Parliament, where we were going through the process of the sectoral debate. Notwithstanding that, I must say that, you know, it gave us the opportunity to refresh ourselves and to come back here with more energized to complete this process that we started earlier this year. Let me say it is good to be here and to see in attendance our able staff here at the Parliament who have worked with us over the last couple of meetings to ensure that we are well informed and provided with all the necessary material for us to do our work. We have our representative here from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development. He is indeed what you could call a local government practitioner. I recall the early days, around 2002, 2003, when I was first elected a councillor. You know, the first session, orientation session, you know, we were saying, what was this man talking about? But I can tell you something, Mr. Thomas really knew then and still knows what it is to be a part of the local government process. So welcome again, Calvert. Members, we will be having presentations or proposals from a number of agencies. I believe they will be virtual presentations. But before we go there, let us go through the process of looking at the minutes. The minutes is before us. I believe it was circulated, and we all got the opportunity. It was circulated, and we have had the opportunity to look at it. So let us go straight into it, members. Are there any omission, corrections, or addition? Omission, correction, omission, corrections? There's no omission for sure. And there appears to be no corrections. Can I have a motion for us to accept the minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Member Campbell, seconded by Member Natalie Campbell Rodriguez. You know, we have to be very careful. We have too many Campbells here.
Three of us and we're all special.
Well, it's a good thing I don't drink Campbell soup.
Just for purpose of information, has the committee gotten approval from the House to meet virtually too?
Hybrid.
And virtually you can participate?
Yes, well, hybrid, so we have to be here as well.
Okay, because I saw from another committee
has to be here.
There was some limitation on those participating virtually.
Yeah, well, we have to have a quorum in-house.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, sir, Chair. The House did pass it, but the member was on leave of absence at the time.
Well, it's a very valid question the member asked. Come, Member Jackson, you know, the few meetings you were absent, was that cantankerous. I don't want that today. Antagonistic.
I thought you were going to say that the member from Southeast was a bit dejected by my absence. And you commented in his prayer he was in a very jovial and warm mood. I am happy that my presence could restore that.
You know, we welcome you back. To be quite honest, Member Jackson.
As a matter of fact, Sir Chair,
that you're in attendance.
The member of Southeast St. Catherine is happy to have the member of South St. Catherine present at this meeting and in good health.
That's right. All right, matters arising from the minutes. Matters arising. Matters arising. Close. Members, let me just use this opportunity to inform you as well that we just got, earlier today we got an email from the Ministry of Health, in particular Southeast Regional Health Authority, that they are asking for us to give them an extension. I would say maybe another week or two, or for the next meeting. So when we decide at the end of the meeting, the next meeting. But we have a presentation from so we have the Jamaica Constable Force, and then we will take the Ministry of Transport and Mining.
Good afternoon. Assume we go now.
Good afternoon. Could you just introduce the members of yourself and members of your team, and you can go straight in the presentation.
Okay, great, no problem, thanks. Well, I'm Kevin Blake, Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of Force Development and Logistics Portfolio. With me is Acting Assistant Commissioner of Police, Mr. Desmond Brooks, in charge of the Planning, Research and Development Branch. We have Senior Superintendent Ivan Martin Daly from the Planning, Research and Development Branch. And we have Inspector Patrick Rowe, who works at the Force Development and Logistics Portfolio. And also we have Corporal Tawana Johnson from the Planning, Research and Development Branch. So this is a team here this afternoon. Do I go straight into my presentation? I'll ask if
May I please, Chairman, may I interrupt the speaker just to ask, was there a written submission from the...
The JCF gave us a submission. Remember, just look at the documents before you.
Oh, I apologize, Chairman. I was not seeing the full presentation. Submission, sorry.
It's at the back. It's at the back. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Let me just share my screen. And this should be a pretty short presentation. There we go. Are we seeing the screen?
Yes, we are.
Yes, we are. Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you very much for this opportunity. As I said, very short presentation. Oh, sorry. My apologies. Okay, great. So the first point we want to make is that the JCF has no objection to the proposal whatsoever. What it means, however, is that there is some work that we have to do internally to accommodate this Portmore as a new parish. We have to look at changes to our structure, our management structure, and also resources. And just so that we understand how the changes will impact JCF, it's useful for us to understand what we look like, how we are arranged across the island. And so the Jamaica Constabulary Force is policed by 19 geographic divisions and 5 geographic areas. Each area has a number of divisions under its command. And we have several non-geographic formations, but with respect to normal road policing, everyday policing, the 19 geographic division covers the entire island. Now, each geographic division, policing division, is it actually coincides with a parish, except for Kingston and St. Andrew, which has six divisions, and also St. Catherine. So Kingston and St. Andrew, we have Kingston East, Kingston West, Kingston Central, St. Andrew South, St. Andrew North, and St. Andrew Central. But for the purpose of the presentation, we'll be looking primarily at St. Catherine Parish and the St. Catherine divisions, which is St. Catherine North and St. Catherine South. St. Catherine South is a division that currently hosts the Portmore area, which we're looking at to become the 15th parish. So St. Catherine South is Portmore, having 5 police stations in addition to the divisional headquarters, which is commonly known as the 100-man. So we have Bridgeport, Waterford, Caymanas, Hellshap, and the Hellshap Police Post. Now, the only police stations in St. Catherine South that are outside of Portmore are the Central Village, Old Harbour, and Old Harbour Bay. Now, so we have 2 options in terms of our restructuring when Portmore becomes a new parish. And the first option is to have Portmore as a division being coincided with the parish of Portmore. And so the 5 stations within Portmore will remain: divisional headquarters, Bridgeport, Waterford, Caymanas, Hellshire Police Post. And the St. Catherine division would have 17 police divisions, means that the 14 divisions that it currently has, plus the 14 police stations that it currently has, plus the 3 additional police stations, which it will subsume, which is the Central Village, the Old Harbour, and Old Harbour Bay. The challenge with this is, given the demand for policing call for service, it is quite expansive, not just in geographic space, but also for police demand and demand and calls for service. And so this is not necessarily the option that we recommend. I'm just bring this to the committee just to give you an appreciation of some of the implications that it will have on the type of restructuring. And just to note also that the significant work needs to be done in this still, but just a preliminary examination of what the structure will look like when Portmore becomes a division. The second option, and the one that we most preferred so far, is Portmore remain as is, as a division and a parish, with the 5 stations remain. And the St. Catherine division is now divided into 2 divisions, St. Catherine North and St. Catherine South, with the stations as you see them here. Now, it's coincidental that there are 9 police stations or police facilities within each. However, the divide that we have here is it benefits from some work that we have done earlier with respect to looking at our establishment. And we developed a mathematical model some time ago that informs us as to what is required in terms of manpower in every single police station across the island. So we benefit from that. And so when we look at the St. Catherine North Division and the St. Catherine South Division, they pretty much have a very similar resource requirement with respect to the variables that we use to determine police service and police strength. And so this is what we are more in preference with this particular arrangement. It will be less expansive, obviously, but it will require an additional divisional command structure. It also requires some realignment of police stations and policing assets. Again, more work needs to be done in terms of putting an actual figure on the resource requirement where this is concerned. Human resource is going to be an implication on human resource. So whilst we're not creating an additional land space, the demand, for example, in Portmore, as we speak, usually is more than the resources that exist to satisfy that demand. And so the fact that 2 or 3 stations are removed from the command of Portmore doesn't necessarily mean that it will free up much human resource to police those areas. We all know that Portmore is a growing city. Quite often residential and commercial properties are being erected. So these require police service. A number of persons moving from other locations into Portmore, and so the demand increases as we speak. So there is going to be a demand on the need to police, on our human resource to police the space. And so in a nutshell, both options will require change in divisional structure, require changes in command structure, and whilst we prefer the option B, both will also require resource, additional resource allocation. And so in a nutshell, the Jamaica Constabulary Force has these implications are in no way deterrent to the decision to make Portmore the 15th parish, and we support it fully. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, DCP Blake, for this very insightful and even though short, it was indeed a comprehensive presentation. You know, the mere fact that there will be need to be some logistical arrangements, you know, knowing that Portmore, well, St. Catherine South Police Division, as it is now, spread all the way to Olaba Bay and at Central Village. I believe Ferry is a part of it as well. Perry is not a part. Ferry is not. Well, Central Village is a part of it, of St. Catherine South. But I'm sure that the police, you know, is more than equipped. Yeah, Ferry's in South. Member Jackson, I don't want you to mislead me, you know. DCP Blake, can you just clarify for us, Ferry Police Station is in north or south? No. Guys, the boundary for St. Catherine stops at the river, right? So Ferry Police Station is in St. Catherine. Whether it is in St. Catherine North or South Police Division, that is something that we would need some clarification from the JCF. Central Village is South St. Catherine, right? So just look at it from a geographical perspective, it can be assumed that Ferry is in South, but because yes.
Mr. Chair, from the notes that they had sent us before, they have it as South Division. So you're correct. From what the JCF had sent us, what I have in my email, the e-version, it says that the South Division includes Greater Portmore, Bridgeport, Caymanas, Waterford, Hellshaw, Central Village, Old Harbour, and Old Harbour Bay.
Excuse me, I don't know if anyone is hearing, but we're not hearing anything from this side.
Oh, can we have we are addressing that DCP right away. Let me know when you are able to hear us.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So it's on page 2 of what they had sent us. It does say that Central Village, which I assume is what you mean by Ferry. I'm not sure, but it doesn't have Ferry. It which is a different place. It has Central Village.
No. There are two separate police posts.
Right. It's not listed on the South on the document they sent. It may be part of St. Andrew. Ferry.
No. We are
because the constituency right there. It comes up from
that constituency is east,
MP Hilton.
East. No. Eastern St. Catherine. I'm a member of the DGS, so I must know the boundaries.
Well, the police will correct us, but it's not listed on the sheet they sent out.
And I was also the mayor of Spanish Town, so I know the boundaries.
It's East Central, Mr. Chairman.
It is?
East Central, St. Catherine.
Is East Central, not Eastern?
No, it's East Central.
Ferry.
But the police station, Senator Morris, is it considered a part of the St. Catherine South Division? That's the question.
DCP Blake, are you hearing us now? DCP Blake? I know he said he's not here now, so I want to. Oh, okay. DCP Blake?
Yes, my apologies. My audio went immediately after I completed my presentation, so I wasn't hearing anything. So I had to log in.
Okay.
Log out.
Okay, so let me say thanks for this very insightful presentation. A very short but very comprehensive presentation, because I'm sure all the members got a fair understanding, especially as it relates to the divisional structure in terms of geographical structure of the two divisions as it is right now, and also the proposal to have realignment of South and renaming it Portmore Division, and leave what falls outside of the boundary of Portmore as St. Catherine North, and or the second proposal, which includes the separation of what will be outside of the Portmore Division into two divisions, St. Catherine North and St. Catherine South. And I believe that is something that us as members must leave to the JCF. You guys are more experienced and understand the logistics of policing and how to take into consideration the geography of the different areas to ensure that you have a very effective policing system for the different communities, which would be in the rest of St. Catherine, or what would be then the parish of St. Catherine. So I don't believe that members will have any difficulties with that. There was a question though, Ferry Police Station, which division is it currently in? Is it North or South St. Catherine?
It is in the Public Safety and Traffic Enforcement branch, so it is not a part of a geographic division. It's neither in St. Catherine North or South, so that's a P-STEM outpost.
So it's an outpost of the traffic division?
Yes, it is.
Okay, but it is currently in St. Catherine?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Member Jackson, you can ask your question.
Couple of questions from the presentation, but just on the last point, Chairman, about ferry. Was curious about that response, DCP Blake. But in the ferry community, which is down the road from the ferry police station, does that police station service that local community? You have a business strip there, and then further on, just under the hill, you have residents living there, though some of them might be in St. Andrew. But does the ferry police station, essentially, my question is, do they provide any policing service to the local community there?
Yes, it does. But their primary focus is around traffic, mainly around the highway patrol aspect of it. But yes, there are some domestic type policing service that is offered from that space.
So in that context, under what division would that local policing services fall under?
Still under the public safety and traffic enforcement.
Okay. Regarding the presentation, DCP, good afternoon to you and your team.
Yeah, thank you.
You indicated that you have no difficulty with the proposed changes. For the ordinary citizen in every community across Jamaica, their concern is effective policing in their communities. You have 19 police divisions across the country. Some parish may have one division per parish, and you have multiple divisions across some parishes, like the corporate area. St. Catherine has 2. I remember the spread. But the point is that you do have parish for which you have security challenges in. Take, for example, St. James, right? In the corporate area, you have multiple divisions. So the parish designation has no functional difference to your operation. You police regardless of municipality boundary, and you police as effectively as you can across parish boundaries or within parish boundaries. Is that correct?
Yes, you are perfectly correct. However, the unit of division is the police geographic division, which coincides with parishes for the most part. The only 3 parishes that where you don't have that type of alignment is Kingston and St. Andrew and St. Catherine.
Right. So my question is that the boundary has no functional difference with the effective policing from where you are.
The boundary, in a sense, has, because we're talking about management structure. When you look at division of labor again, and as I said before, there's some significant work that went into the demand for police service and for police resource that went into our model that we use to determine our establishment. That model takes into consideration population, transient population, call for service, non-crime call for service, and crime index. So all 4 variables come into play to determine what level of, what is the number of police, and also the command structure, the supervisory and command structure that is required for each police base. So that informs how we divide ourselves. So if you look at the first proposal with St. Catherine being a division and Portmore being a division, then St. Catherine itself as a division would be pretty large, not in geographic space, but in demand for policing service.
That's exactly.
It makes sense that at least the command structure and the resources is separated so that they can give the type of focus attention to the level of demand that is required.
Yeah, that was where I was going, because beyond the divisional structure, you have the areas that is commanded in the hierarchy, and the command in the area structure is also is influenced. What happens in the area?
Coordination and ensure collaboration between different divisions, and it takes care of some of the points that you just raised in terms of policing across divisional boundaries. And so you may have a requirement for policing in a space that is shared by separate division. Then that level of coordination takes place at the area level, and those are for incidents. But for normal operation, there's a lot of coordination that needs to take place among divisional command, and that is done on behalf of the high command at the area level.
So in summary, is it safe to say that with the dexterity and the flexibility within the structure of the JCF, it allows you to respond to the demands across division, within areas, and even across the country, depending on what the security demand is at any point in time? correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for DCP Blake and his team? Thank you very much, DCP and your team, for this very insightful.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, member.
Yeah, man. I'm sorry about that. Hand-raising feature is not visible for me. So I have to interject.
Go ahead, Member Morris. Yes.
But let me commend my colleague and friend, Dr. Blake, for his presentation and say to him, welcome to the Parliament. But earlier in the presentation, I heard Dr. Blake giving some stats as to the number of police stations that are going to be in St. Catherine versus, say, the proposed parish of Portmore. And it seemed as if, from the numbers that I can recall, there are far more police stations in a less populated parish of St. Catherine than what is proposed for a more intensely populated parish of Portmore. And that seemed to be a logistical challenge there in light of the crime hotspots in the Portmore area. I don't know how the police intend to reconcile that, Dr. Bray.
Yes, you're perfectly correct again, Dr. Morris. As I declared earlier, we have some more work to do. And also, we are never at the point, and Portmore as it stands now, and then we will be lagging behind with resources based on demand, and Portmore is growing. We may very well need to. We have been in discussion long before this in terms of the resources that are in Portmore, including police facilities and stuff, whether or not it is sufficient. So we're saying that this opportunity allows us now to explore some more, to investigate this matter some more. And so there's so much more work that we have to do. And in the preliminary, as a matter of fact, that was a discussion we had before this meeting, the need and the growing nature of Portmore and the need for policing service. I refer again to the model that was created. It's an expert system. It's a model based on expert system and a mathematical model. And it is done in such a way that as the variables change, as the environment change, we can run that model again and be informed as to the requirement that is needed for the space. But yes, it is something after we complete this exercise, we may very well require more police outposts inside that place. So you're correct, Dr. Morris.
Okay then. All right.
Thank you for DCP.
Thanks very much, my friend.
Member Morris, I just want to lend some clarity to the argument you just made. You know, you made reference to the new division, which would be St. Catherine. If it should be that you'll have only two divisions, one in Portmore and one in St. Catherine. And you make reference to the fact that there are more stations, or there'll be more police stations in St. Catherine. But one has to take into consideration the terrain as well. You know, these stations are in some rural areas, deep rural areas, for example, Guys Hill, right? And you cannot just look at population size. For example, Portmore is a more compact area, and it will have its own challenges in terms of how you police such an area, and an area that is actually growing. But if you look at the proposal from the JCF that speaks to Portmore, the same stations that are comprise Portmore will still be there in Portmore. Maybe they will have to do some form of rearrangement, but I believe the police is more than capable of doing that. If we have to put in place additional police stations to service Portmore, I believe that is something that is already on the books, because Portmore is expanding every day. You understand? So the model that you use 15, 20 years ago will have to be looked at to ensure that it is able to function in the current environment. And so I don't want us to be misled that we have more police stations in an area that is less populated relative to an area that is populated, Member Morris.
But Mr. Chairman, is it that the police geographical terrain? Or
no, but of course you would have to have access to policing in areas that are far from the divisional headquarters. So we want to bear that in mind as well. But I believe that the police is more than able to put in place an effective organizational structure to ensure that we get the best policing, not only within the proposed parish of Portmore and the rest of St. Catherine, but throughout the country. So members I thank you very much, Member Morris. A very good point, nevertheless. Any other questions for DCP and his team? Thank you very much, DCP.
Thank you, Dr. Weekly, and thank you for the opportunity to be here to present, and be assured that we will do all that is necessary to ensure that we have the most effective service delivered to our citizens, and we'll continue to work until we get this thing right. Thank you all very much.
Before you, DCP, just thought in my mind. In Portmore, in recent times, there have been some increase in criminal activities. Would you say that the absence of parish status impairs your ability to respond to the security demands currently facing Portmore?
DCP, DCP, that question, I believe you have answered already. I mean, police irrespective of parish status. And I think Member Jackson is being mischievous with that
Mr.
question.
Chairman, with all due respect.
You are being mischievous because
with all due respect.
Member Jackson.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, every member of this committee has the right to seek clarification to any question. I am seeking clarification, and that's why I pose it to the DCP. Is it an unreasonable question?
I want to allow you to get that clarification. Member, I want to allow you to get that clarification, but sometimes we just need to deal with the business at hand, man, and stop going around.
I think that your chairman, you are being mischievous and
DCP,
on the verge of being abusive.
I know, and I apologize for the fact that you have to answer that question twice.
Yes. In responding, I just want to say that we police based on demand for service. And we try to find the best and most effective organization of our officers and our assets in order to deliver the most efficient service. The label of the space itself is a little bit not relevant to how we operate. However, we have to be mindful that as I indicated in my presentation earlier, there is a lot of reasoning and logic behind having a parish and a division coinciding. What we have not seen, whilst we have a parish that is shared by many divisions, what we have not seen is a single division spanning more than one parishes. And there is some logic to that. And so if a new parish is created, it's only prudent for the organization, for whatever thought that went into our structure, for us to examine and look at it that way. Currently, our operational structure is one that fits around a parish itself and stuff. So whilst we have jurisdiction across the country, we have to still organize ourselves in a way that we can deliver the most effective policing service.
Thank you very much for that clarification, DCP. Very, very useful.
And if I may, Sir Chair.
Yes, sir.
And in no way I'm speaking on behalf of the JCF, but in the presentation made a short while ago by DSP, you know, it was stated as well, when Portmore become the next 15 parish, the 15 parish, that the establishment of Portmore division would be established, right? And that will cater to certain communities that were listed in the presentation that you made. I'd like to share with my colleague that if that does happen, then the policing division for the Portmore division will be smaller to cater to the needs of the communities of this Portmore division. Am I correct, DCP?
Sorry, could you just repeat the last part of the question? Sorry.
I'm just saying, if Portmore, or when Portmore become the 15 parish, right, it will be the Portmore division, which have far less communities, as you have stated here in your presentation, compared to the St. Catherine South division. So that will put the JSF in a better position to streamline, you know, the policing to a smaller division, so to speak, when Portmore become the 15 parish.
At the different arrangements. So yes, you're correct. And so whilst it's geographically smaller, the demand for policing service in a place like Portmore is very high, very high. So being able to concentrate and more effectively on a smaller constituents would be, it certainly will help the police. And so yes, you're correct.
Again, thank you, DCP, and your team.
You're most welcome. Pleasure is ours.
Just to clarify one little issue. DCP?
I think...
It may have left.
All right.
Connection.
DCP, I'll show you, Mr. Chair. Could you clarify for me, in terms of the coastal waters, that would go somewhere, I think is 12 miles out into the sea? Is that so? Your policing area?
Yes, you're correct.
So if that is in fact so, Portmore would be extended to 12 miles out to the sea. The parish of Portmore.
I assume that is so.
Very well, thank you.
Are there any other questions from members? Before I again thank the DCP and his team. Thank you again, DCP, and your team. Have a good evening.
I welcome the many thanks, sir.
Madam Clerk, we will have the Ministry of Transport and Mining. Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Good afternoon, members.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you. My name is Dawn Smith-Fagan. I'm the Acting Chief Technical Director in the Ministry, representing our Permanent Secretary, Dr. Janine Dawkins, and I do extend apologies on her behalf. Mm-hmm. We have a team here with us, a few of us in the conference room, as well as online. And if you will allow me, I would introduce the members, or at least mention their names. From the ministry, we have Ms. Tanya Bedwell, the Senior Director of Transport Policy. We have Ms. Shernet Sampson, our Director of Projects. From the Planning, Research and Evaluation branch of the ministry, we have Ms. Monifa Blake representing the director and Mr. Ryan Thompson, our senior research officer. We have from the Island Traffic Authority, Mr. Vernal Oliver, chief inspector, representing the director of the ITA, Mr. Kenute here, who, if time and events permit, he should be joining us. He is representing the ministry elsewhere. From the JUTC, representing Mr. Paul Abrams, the managing director, we have Mr. Owen Smith, the deputy managing director of operations, and we have Ms. Anicia Nita, special projects and corporate affairs. We have from the Transport Authority, Ms. Sonia Mitchell, research officer, and Mrs. Carolyn Irving, manager of research and statistics, representing Mr. Willard Hilton, the managing director. And from the JRC, representing the acting managing director, Mr. Donald Hanson, we have Mr. Anthony Allen, consultant civil engineer with the JRC. That should be the team, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Madam. You may go ahead with your presentation at this time.
Thank you. I'm going to share the presentation. Goodness. Not seeing it. Having a little technical trouble here. Presentation was lined up, but I'm not seeing it to share. Yes, perhaps I need to turn the camera off. If I could just have a moment, I'm just going to switch off for just a second to see if we can just sort this out. And I will actually commence the presentation while we attempt to fix the problems. Just a moment, please. So while we sort that out, if I may begin, so the minister would have made a submission to the committee outlining some of the considerations as they relate to impact Portmore as it continues to develop and looks towards becoming Jamaica's 15th parish as proposed. The presentation highlights some of the considerations, and it is grounded in the recognition that transport issues are important really to any jurisdiction. And in the instant case, we examined the needs in relation to transportation and its attendant issues and how they're being met and will be met as Portmore evolves. So we first made some general observations, some of which the committee might already have been advised of from other entities, but as they underpin the transport considerations, I'll share them. So as it relates to civic and administrative identity, all right, so the presentation is up, just move to slide 5. With our current, here we are, parish jurisdictions being in place long before the country even gained independence, those have been in place since 1867. The structure would have been established, of course, in response to the growing population then, allowing for better governance. Each parish would have its local authority to facilitate operation. However, as the role has transcended the original intent, and it now includes the provision of course, minor water supplies, the parochial roads, and the property tax collections. So Portmore has transitioned from being primarily a sugarcane farming area to being put forward as a new housing solution, as the demand for housing solutions in Kingston really outgrew the availability. And this was due to, of course, the proximity to the capital and the nature of the terrain. The first residential developments date back to the 1960s. And of course, since then, the population has grown significantly and continues to grow with increased infrastructure demands to include community centers, schools, police stations, post offices, and so on. Can I turn my camera back on? Looking at the economic imperatives that we considered, we looked at the three-sector economic model, which divides economies into primary, secondary, and tertiary activities. And that primary sector is a part of the economy dedicated to the exploitation of natural resources, while, of course, the secondary sector includes all branches of human activities that transform raw materials into products or goods. And the tertiary covers service industries which exist to facilitate the transport and distribution of those goods coming out of the secondary sector. The activities carried out at the primary sector are important, necessary, and indispensable for the population survival. So all parishes have an established primary and or secondary sector, whether it's farming, mining, fishing, manufacturing. In the context of Portmore becoming a parish, the Portmore Fishing Village Complex could be regarded as its primary sector activity, along with fishing connected to Hellshire and its environs. The construction, material, and confectionery manufacturing industries that operate there would be part of the secondary sector. And it is our view that other self-sustaining local economic activities are necessary to provide for the population. I mentioned the matter of housing, did I? The dominant land use within Portmore is for housing, with many residents using Kingston and Spanish Town to conduct some of their economic and social activities, such as employment, entertainment, and shopping. Looking at infrastructure imperatives, the considerations and outcomes of designating an area as a parish are many and varied. We think articulation is required as a matter of policy to determine exactly how you define a parish. However, by examining existing parishes and from the studies, it's being posited that the facilities listed here are accepted as critical infrastructure that exists within the parishes and from which Portmore would benefit so as to function at optimal efficiency. This, of course, as the population continues to expand and as it seeks to transition. So we're talking about type A and B health facilities, centralized marketplace, decentralized government offices to limit the need to traverse to Kingston and St. Catherine, motor vehicle examination depot, integrated transport network, and additional sewage and proper road and route planning to improve traffic management. So we know that Portmore, the infrastructure is evolving. Some of the facilities are present and some are still needed. So what we're saying here is that these would be ongoing developments and do not preclude the space being declared a parish. Turning to transport-related observations, just to situate the fact that the ministry has the overarching responsibility for all modes of transportation. We're policy-led, and we provide our contribution to each sector's each parish's transportation plan, through the planning authorities. So while the ministry is currently in the process of undertaking the revision of the National Transport Policy 2007, a broad principle embodied in the policy and which is applicable to Portmore is the thrust to diversify the modes of transport. So the ministry advances these transport-related factors as being important considerations for Portmore. So while road construction and maintenance are not the ministry's remit, public passenger transportation and road safety are intertwined with the road network. While the road surface road area is relatively good, transportation network planning and roadway expansion will be necessary in certain areas in order to reduce congestion as well as to accommodate non-motorized traffic better. The infrastructure will need to accommodate articulated buses, increase bus stops, and lay-by areas. It would be useful if road expansion and improvements are developed with the implementation of priority lanes for buses and for high occupancy vehicles. That way, look to provide adequate sidewalks, guardrails, road signs and markings, and traffic calming measures. This will ensure that the road safety issues are not compromised at the behest solely of moving motor vehicles, in light of the fact that Jamaica is an ardent supporter of global road safety protocols. Improvement to transportation facilities within the area will be needed to meet increasing demand, which is occasioned by the population growth and the demographic changes. Two main public transport facilities, the Nagohead Transport Center and the Portmore Mall Transport Center, will of course not meet the future needs of a new parish. And what I will note here is that the ministry does have in its plans the development of an additional transportation hub, the Portmore Transport Hub, as a possible solution for enhancing public transportation in Portmore and improving its linkages with downtown Kingston and Halfway Tree. The project is on hold at this time, subject to resolution of financial challenges. With Portmore also being accessible by sea and train, the ministry has given consideration to the possibility of having a ferry service from Portmore to Port Royal, or we are giving consideration and the train service linking the Spanish Town and Gregory Park area to downtown, to the community, to take the burden off the primary mode of traveling to Portmore. The development of a port facility and train line rehabilitation will be necessary to accommodate these modes of travel and movement of goods and industrial materials for residents. In terms of vehicular movement and logistics, it's the ministry's view that transportation facilities should incorporate an integrated infrastructure system to allow for better facilitation of free or unencumbered movement of vehicular and pedestrian traffic. There have been a number of new developments in Portmore, let's say over the last decade. Therefore, the historical trip generation and distribution models may be outdated, and we would need to do the requisite surveys in terms of implementing new routes. While Portmore is currently being served by the JUTC, its sub-franchisees and route taxis, the numbers of route and licensed operators have grown significantly over the years. With the proposed restoration of the rail service linking the Spanish Town and Gregory Park area to downtown Kingston and other possible developments, such as the ferry service, as I mentioned, this demand for transportation in Portmore would benefit from a facility such as the transport hub to allow for a cohesive integrated management of the different modes. Just touching on e-mobility and mass transit, the matter of parish designation for Portmore could be used as a transformational tool. once it's underpinned by a development ethos which balances economic growth with national identity and environmental stability. The growth of new cities, new spaces, particularly, well, we looked at Asia and Africa, has revealed a trend towards positioning cities around health, education, or finance within exclusive zones. The extent to which this may or may not benefit the ongoing considerations is still to be determined, although there are examples for regional model for Portmore. We look, for example, at Panama and Miami. Within this context, positioning Portmore around e-mobility and environmental sustainability could prove a reasonable advancement. And we would say that the government does recognize the need to be more energy efficient in the transportation sector, and the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology has been mandated to develop the electric vehicle policy. And just to add that the electric mobility strategic framework has been completed, and it will inform the electric vehicle policy for the sector. E-mobility and mass transit, we're still here. Excuse me. Over the past year, the JUTC has been testing compressed natural gas on a number of its buses for the Portmore to Kingston route, with the ultimate goal of reducing the fuel use and cost for the company over time. There are plans to increase the number of buses in the fleet utilizing CNG, given initial indications of success from the pilot. On average, a person traveling from Portmore to Kingston, the duration 2 to 3 hours to get there. Peak hours, despite the 13 kilometers or 20-minute distance. So for a high demand space such as Portmore, the need for efficient public transport vehicles, incentivizing private vehicle operators to purchase electric vehicles, park and ride systems, as well as the high occupancy vehicle mechanisms, we think should be prioritized. We think it's necessary to, as it will assist in combating the energy, time, and negative environmental impact occasioned by vehicles waiting in traffic daily in order to enter or to leave Portmore. To touch on technological advancements, the fact that GPS allows individuals to access real-time traffic conditions and transit schedule information, empowering people to set and change travel schedules and routes. With the growing demand for transport in Portmore as a result of the new housing developments and the high-density businesses such as the call centers, the need for the implementation of these technologies is evident. So the JUTC is looking to transition these technologies into their operations. And of course, the pace at which a technology evolves is something that we have to contend with. We think that there should be a consideration generally pinned to public transportation throughout Portmore, where it's a consideration prior to being granted the rights to operate a route, a sea vessel, or train. With this part of the presentation, I'll just say that the ministry supports the proposal of Portmore being made Jamaica's 15th parish. It's our consideration that in terms of advancing the views on the matter, the infrastructural needs should be addressed, but it is important that I say that they don't serve to preclude the designation of parish status. Their absence doesn't, but they would ensure, their presence would ensure that the parish is endowed with the necessities to best serve the population. Chairman, if you would permit, that ends this presentation, but if the representatives of the JUTC, JRC, and Transport Authority in particular at this point, or they could come in and indicate anything that they would like to add, or we could just await any questions that there may be from the committee.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Smith-Fagan. for that presentation. Thank you and your team for the presentation. Members, any questions for the Ministry of Transport and Mining? Yes, I should have just said, Member Jackson, you want to ask your question at this time?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Mrs. Smith-Fagan, and your team. I just glanced through going through the report and listening to the narrative you gave, summary narrative. A couple of questions. On page 3, the infrastructure that you referred to regarding the mall, the Portmore Mall, and the plans for the Portmore Transportation Center. You indicated that it's on hold. Where is it now? How long now has it been at hold, and who is playing the lead role in moving it forward?
I'm just going to ask our Senior Director of Transport Policy to address the issue. Ms. Tanya Bedwood.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just to note that the matter of the Portmore Hub development, it had started for some time, and it has been carried through the PIMSEC process, or the process of being approved by the by PIMSEC as required under the PIMS, the legislation. Cabinet had also approved the project in principle, and what this means essentially is that there is support, but the funding that's required is not available and has not been available. And as it is now, from the ministry's perspective, the ministry is still intending to move the project forward. However, the configuration, we have to take a look, revisit the project to see if, in light of the costing that's currently associated with the project, if it's still a deterrent, how we will move beyond that. So it may mean a rescoping of the project, not to compromise the initial objective of the project to improve public transportation within that area, but to seek to see how it can be facilitated, and considering the growth and the plans for Portmore, because we know that whether or not Portmore goes forward as the 15th parish, there are significant developments. And once there are developments, there is an associated increased demand for travel. So the ministry is looking at how we can advance the project, even if it means rescoping somewhat to make it a bit more affordable. Just to, if I may say.
Sure. To be honest with you, I am more in, I need some clarity here. You mentioned, Madam, that the project, in keeping with the new planning, in fact, and it came out of the last IMF agreement that we had after 2012, where public sector funded projects are subject to review by the Ministry of Finance before they be formally adopted and be placed on the national budget for support. Correct. That exercise, as I understand it, is a very comprehensive exercise to determine the functionality of it, the use of it, the efficiency of it, etc. In other words, it makes sense and can provide value to the public to justify it being put on the public, on the budget. So that exercise was done. From what I'm hearing from you, is it that there is concerns about what was done before in that pre-planning stage that would have caused it to be approved for funding, and I think some amount of expenditure may have been made on it already, right? So I want you to tell me what that was, if any was made. But more specifically, is there a change in policy regarding that transport center outside of what was initially conceptualized and approved through the Ministry of Finance to be funded? And I pose it to you, Madam Fagan, because the transport center would be a critical infrastructure to the transportation need in Portmore. Therefore, the lead entity in this must be the Ministry of Transport because of how critical it is to your function. And one of the questions that I asked in the beginning at first, who is leading this? Is it the Transport Ministry? Is it UDC? Is it where? Who's playing the lead role?
If I may respond, member, the lead role is the project comes under the purview of the Ministry of Transport and Mining. Just to state that the policy of the ministry has not changed in terms of the policy that supported the initial development of that project. The UDC comes into play in that UDC owns the property, and there would be some arrangement between the ministry and the UDC in line with which dialogue had started and had been way advanced where that is concerned. So it is the ministry that's the lead on the project. Significant work was done, as you pointed out, as it relates to what informed the PIMS, the process of the project being considered by the Ministry of Finance. And that was a part of the delay as well, because they required that a detailed feasibility study be done, and that was done. When, as I had stated, when it got to the stage of approval, it went to cabinet, it was approved in principle, but we were advised at the time that the requisite funding was not available. So it is still on the books as far as we're aware, and the ministry is concerned.
But I hear you said the ministry is in discussion with UDC, and you mentioned that UDC owns the land, which I'm aware of. But in terms of the project implementation, who is driving it? Is it within the ministry? Is the consultation with the ministry regarding the land, or is it broader than that?
The project...
Hold on. Let me just ask a question, and maybe this can assist Member Jackson. This project, does it reside in the Ministry of Transport and Mining?
The project resides in the Ministry of Transport and Mining, and we're at the stage, from the stage of conceptualization, it has been with the Ministry of Transport and Mining, working along with the JUTC, which is one of our entities. The UDC, it is not a project of the UDC at all. The UDC's involvement is to the extent that they own the property on which we're seeking to develop the Portmore transport.
So you have answered the question for Member Jackson, that the project resides with the Ministry of Transport and Mining, and as such, it is the lead entity in this regard.
That's
you
correct.
have partners, of course, JUTC, which is also an entity within the Ministry of Transport and Mining, and of course, a UDC, who is the owner of the property. All right, correct. And the limiting factor, in essence, is funding. Correct? Thank you very much.
That's correct, Chairman.
Any other questions?
Yes.
I think...
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Member Morris.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Smith-Fagan, in your presentation, you made mention that in order to have an effective transportation system, there will be a requirement for the roads in Portmore to be significantly upgraded. And when you said that, I recall the presentation from the individuals from the National Works Agency, and they pointed out that I think it was going to cost between $15 to $17 billion to upgrade the road infrastructure in Portmore. And then there is another portion that they had stated to maintain the road on an annual basis. And when we looked at the figure that they gave in terms of previous allocation, it was significantly less than what is required for maintenance. I don't know if you are aware of that data in terms of the formulation of your policy, or coming to your conclusion in terms of support for Portmore as the 15th parish. But I would want to find out if you are aware of that, those data, and if those were taken into consideration in your deliberation. The second thing that is of concern to me is that the JUTC is a major loss leader in terms of the public budget. It carries out a very necessary and important function in terms of public transportation. But I see where we are looking to add to that rail service to take some of the commuting citizens from Portmore into the city. And I would want to find out if any feasibility studies have been done or market survey to determine the viability of that, because I'm certain that the taxpayers would not be pleased to know that another service is going to be introduced that will become burdensome to them. Thank you.
Thank you, member. In relation to your first question, we are aware that there are constraints, challenges as it relates to funding, and that the cost for road infrastructure, road improvement is significant. Yes, it is factored into the considerations we make. And what I would want to say at this point is that in terms of looking at what the space, Portmore, in terms of looking at what it needs in order to operate at optimal efficiency, we would have arrived at the particular considerations that were put forward in the document, and as I would have shared. And we do recognize, of course, that ideally the plans that we would be recommending are not all implementable all at once. So we are aware of the data, the impact, and it is something that we do factor into our consideration in terms of making our recommendations.
Sure. Mrs.
There's another part.
Sorry.
If I could just look to the second issue about feasibility studies. And let me just ask my colleague to just take that. Just one moment.
Just to add to what Mrs. Fagan said in response to Member Floyd's, Member Morrison's comment that he made as it relates to the concerns where, they looking at spending taxpayers' money, funds for a bus service as well as a train service to operate in the same location. I know that from the ministry's perspective, in looking at seeing how we can develop a complete multimodal system, we're looking to integrate the system in a manner that facilitates complementarity and not so much competition. So these are among the principles that will be applied to developing such a system, an integrated system.
Has a feasibility study been done?
A feasibility study has not yet been completed on that aspect of what we're looking at for Portmore. So while we acknowledge that these are things that need to be done, it has not yet been completed. But we do realize that these are our plans have to be informed by concrete information, which can only come from such a process.
Absolutely. Has to be data driven.
Correct.
I just want to pick up where I left off. Madam Smith-Fagan, on page 4 of the report, e-mobility and mass transit, and I read, parish designation for Portmore could be used as a transformational tool once this is underpinned by a development ethos that balances economic growth with national identity and environmental sustainability. Page 4. Quite a bit. Are you saying, madam, that the designation of Portmore, for it to be valuable and useful, this is what ought to happen? And I just pin that back over to your concluding statement on page 5. And I in the second line, it is the view of this ministry that in advancing consideration on this matter, the basic aforementioned infrastructural needs to be addressed. Is therefore the parish designation, in your view, according to your submission here, for it to be useful and bring value, those things are prerequisites?
Member, thank you for that. That's not quite the point.
Not hearing.
Could you turn up the volume? Yes, go ahead. Where are you now?
Hear me now? Okay, thank you. That's not quite the position being articulated. What we're saying is that while this would be ideal, it does not preclude Portmore being designated as Portmore being given parish status. We're saying that these considerations need to be looked at. We're not saying that it has to be prior to.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fagan.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Smith-Fagan. Very useful. So therefore, in respect of the mandate of your ministry and your related agencies, like JUTC, Transport Authority, and etc., your mandate is to fulfill the transportation needs of the communities across the country, Portmore being one of them. What then is precluding you from adequately addressing these deficiencies and following through on these transformational initiatives in the community? Is it the absence of the Portmore parish designation that prohibiting you from achieving those?
Member Jackson, I don't think that's a fair question to ask Mrs. Fagan.
Mr. Chairman, with due respect,
that is not a fair question because...
Mr. Chairman, we, not me, we and the public has been given a report here with certain arguments being put forward. I am merely trying to interrogate this report to better understand if the proposal or suggestions, observations
are credible
being put forward in our mind fully informs the process. That's simply the basis of my questioning. So if you have put these things forward, Madam Smith-Fagan, I am simply asking, because right now there are certain challenges, enormous challenges as it relates to transportation in Portmore, which have been ongoing for some time. The agencies have intervened, the JUTC, the Transport Authority, to mitigate them through various measures. From what you're saying here and your support for the parish designation, I want to be clear if those challenges with a designation of parish will now be better mitigated. That's simply my question. And if not, why is it that you are not, through your various agencies, tackling those problems which are impairing the proper transportation of persons in Portmore?
Let me start where you ended, member. I don't know that it is fair to say that we are not tackling the issues, but this is something that has to be done. Again, as I said earlier, can't all be done at once. The whole matter of planning, the ministry's mandate and responsibility extends to the entire island in terms of the implementing transport policies and the development and so on. And it is not confined to the space that we are looking at. Again, what we are positing here in terms of the particular space and the particular proposal is that these things, these considerations, these recommendations would lead to optimal operations of the space of the parish in meeting the needs of the citizens. So while we speak to these, we continue to do what we need to do in order to advance those areas of responsibility under our purview.
Summary then,
Mr.
Madam.
Chairman.
No,
Mr. Chairman.
Let me just finish. What's one last? So in summary from your response, Mrs. Smith-Fagan, those challenges which you just referred to, if the Portmore area is designated a parish, then you will be able to overcome those challenges. Would I be correct in making that assumption?
Sir Chair.
Member Jackson,
point of order.
we all listened to the answer, the presentation and the answer from Mrs. Smith-Fagan, and she did not conclude that.
Absolutely, sir.
She did not conclude that. And Member Jackson.
But he's asking a question.
Member Morris, I'm on the floor.
Yes, but
Member Morris, I'm on the floor. Member Morris, I am on the floor.
Yes, but I heard
Member
another member intervening while you were speaking as well. But
I am on the floor, sir. Member Morris, I'm on the floor. You get your opportunity to speak.
And I hope your ruling will be the same for other members when you're ruling, when you're speaking.
So, Member Jackson, you know, I know for a fact you're a very intelligent man, and you did not deduce that from the presentation and from the answer.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I don't think it's the role of the chairman to edit the questions that any member is asking to a witness that comes before this committee. It is not the prerogative of the chairman. to edit any question that I pose.
I am not editing your question, but
so we'll just
as chairman,
I
must guide the members that you must not frustrate the efforts and try to mislead or put out there erroneous statements and attribute those statements to the representatives.
Mr. Chair, with all due respect,
because
I pose
it is
a
clear
question
in the presentation and in the document before us.
Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, I pose a question and I would not question the competence of Ms. Smith-Fagan to respond. So allow her to.
I think, Sir Chair, that's what the member was doing. And trying to ask the same question in 3-4 different forms. Sir Chair, can you protect me from the member, please?
Can I ask a question, please?
Can you protect me from the member, please? Sir Chair, can you protect me from the member?
Members, I know that Mrs. Dawn Smith-Fagan is more than competent to answer. Member Miller, I'm going to allow Mrs. Dawn Fagan to answer the question, but I don't want us to be badgering the representatives here, looking for sound bites when we have important matters at hand. Mrs. Dawn Smith-Fagan, you may answer the question again, just as the previous presenter had to answer the same question to Member Jackson 3-4 times. But I mean, it is the right of Member Jackson to ask as many questions in as many different forms. So I allow you, Member Jackson, to frustrate yourself along that line.
Thank you, Chair.
Chairman.
The point to be made here for me is that development is not static. It is ongoing. So the infrastructure development takes place now, takes place with the designation of parish status, in the same way that our other 14 parishes don't stop having infrastructure and other developments simply because they are a parish.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Smith-Fagan. Thank you very much for that clarification. All that needs, you will go on doing them regardless of parish status.
Member Golden Campbell.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, don't forget I've been waiting, sir.
What was that, member?
I've been waiting with my hand up.
I'm not able to see in the CEO. No, I was gonna be like Member Jackson, and make a statement.
I need the clerk to make note of that. The chairman says he wants to be like me.
No, I do not want to.
What an unfortunate statement.
Go.
Mr. Chairman, my question to Mrs. Smith-Fagan is this. Would Portmore, being granted parish status, would it in any way make Portmore worse off than it is today?
Most certainly not, member, not in our opinion. What we have been trying to put forward is that the matter of development, these infrastructure items and areas would enhance the status. But no, it is not our view that obtaining parish status would make Portmore worse off.
Thank you so much.
Member Golden Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mrs. Smith-Fagan and your team. Mr. Chairman, you know, oftentimes I find we sit in committees and we disagree over things that are not necessary for us to disagree over, because I really think Mrs. Smith-Fagan's certainly written submission was fairly clear, and her oral submission seemed more or less consistent with it. And if I could really just sum it up in 2 sentences, the bottom line that she seems to be suggesting, and I'd ask her just to confirm or deny that I am saying it accurately, is essentially that the transport imperatives are the transport imperatives because of the demographics of the area, and that while the parish status is not a bar to those imperatives, the parish status and the fact of parish status could be used in a positive way to enhance the progress of those imperatives. Would that, Mrs. Smith-Fagan, be an accurate reading of your position?
Yes, member, it is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no further comments or questions.
Any more questions? Thank you very much, Mrs. Smith-Fagan and your team for that presentation and for adequately answering the questions posed by the members. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair, members.
Members, we are at the end of the presentations for this afternoon. We were supposed to have the Southeast Regional Health Authority, and they have asked for an extension. Nevertheless, they have given us a printed version of the presentation. I'm not sure if they're going to update that presentation when they actually make the oral presentation. And we are suggesting that next week, Thursday morning at 10 a.m., we have the meeting booked. I would have wanted it to as well. Remember, Jackson, look at this thing. You have me squeezing it. And there's no date in July. So, members, we can take I'm suggesting that we take, we have that meeting. I don't think we'll have just any more than that one presentation. We should not be a very long meeting. So we just yeah? In the morning, 10 a.m. in the morning, we'll have the meeting. Next Thursday, the 24th, 10 a.m. And we have that short meeting to take Southeast Regional. And then we take a decision as to the way forward. And then we, try our best. The June is completely packed, so I doubt we'll get a date in June. In July.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, yes,
Chair.
member. Wednesday afternoon. Sorry, member. Wednesday afternoon we have the joint select. Yes, member.
Yeah, I just so at that meeting next Thursday, we'll discuss when you're going to be taking individual presentation, because we are now taking institutions.
We have most of the individuals have opted, who have made submission, have opted not to make don't really want to make the verbal presentation. We have it here, but those persons who would want to make that verbal presentation will be allowed to do so. But most of the submissions are just some one-page presentation before us. Okay. But we will take Southeast Regional, and from there we will just make a decision as to how we proceed on next Thursday. We need to put together. Well, we are already working on the matrix for us to discuss, and then take a decision as to how we proceed. Members, are we in favor of next Thursday morning, 10 a.m.?
I don't have a problem with that, Mr. Chair.
All right. So next Thursday, the 24th, at 10 a.m. And we want to have a very short meeting. It's the clerk's birthday, so we need to bring some present. No. This is our thing. Can I have a motion for us to adjourn, members? Moved by member Jackson, seconded by member Williams. Meeting adjourned.